Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. The next episode of Red Valkyrie is about to start. Fat bastard. You're such a dick. No, and it won't when you auto mute. You can't mute us before the video. Just tell us to be quiet and then play the fucking video. Oh, anyway. I was so excited. It was going to be the first time since I came back that it wasn't a huge fuck up in the beginning. And it was a fuck up in the beginning anyway. Welcome to another episode of Red Valkyrie. I am your host, Shae the Red, with my dick of a co-host, Cyborg Valkyrie. Say hi, Cy.
Wow, you pointed in the right direction. I'm so proud. Hello, everybody.
Oh, and hello to Rick Saylor. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Wise guys, thank you for stopping by before you run off to work. We super appreciate it because we're here with the incredible talent, Mr. Drew Krevi. How are you doing, sir?
Good, good. Thanks so much for having me. I can't wait to get going on this.
Hell yeah. Oh, no, I'm so I remember when you kind of first hit the scene with Island 19 and people were putting it out there and everything. And all of a sudden I got, Shae, you have to look at this. And then somebody sent me a link and I opened it up and I was like, oh, it's everything I love. And I was like, started reading it and I went, oh, and it's a little violent. I'm totally there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It looks so awesome. I'm so excited. So we're talking about Island 19 and Drew, we're going to play your video without sound because we don't want any copyright issues. Apparently people are being stupid with your audio. But while Cy is playing that, I just kind of wanted you to walk us through what exactly is Island 19.
Okay. First, thanks so much for the great kind words you just said. And Island 19 is, it deals with Flight 19 and one of the most famous cases of a vanishing over the Bermuda Triangle. It happened in 1945. So the whole story, the whole comic is based off of a real event or true events. And it gets very fictionalized after that, but after we actually lose contact with the pilots. So it was a flight 19 was 6 planes. It was a training mission out of Fort Lauderdale that vanished about an hour or so into their flight mission. And ironically, the mission was a training mission for navigation. And so these pilots got lost. And they thought that they were actually south of Florida for a long time. They thought they were going to fly north and see the big Florida landmass and they'd be okay. Turns out the Navy thinks that they were much further out east.
East, yeah, I figured.
They were over the Atlantic Ocean and that they just flew north and maybe got lost. All of their instruments were lost, their compasses, everything went haywire, and there was even talk of an electrical storm, and so they just disappeared. And then the plane they sent out to search for them also disappeared. So that was a weird mystery as well. And I pick up the story there and what happened to them. They ended up maybe on an uncharted island, fighting crazies and Nazis and pirates and Native Americans. and which, by the way, I love your outfit today.
Thank you very much.
I love that. And so Island 19, obviously named after the flight, is picks up that story, and it's kind of where the imagination picks up. But it's really, in a strange way, it's a bit of a theory of mine about what happens in the Bermuda Triangle and what could possibly be going on. I'm kind of a nut about that stuff. I like the Bermuda Triangle stories, Bigfoots, aliens, all that stuff is fun for me. I don't know if I believe in all of it, but I really, really hope it's all true,
Like fingers crossed it'll be true.
Yeah. It'd be fun. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So basically we follow the mission commander, the captain, who's an old guy, about 60 years old. He comes out of retirement to train these young kids after the war, because it's hard to get people to teach and train after the war. And he goes up. He's a widower. His kids have moved away. And so now he's interested in just helping, and he gets to fly, basically. And that's what he really loves to do. And so he's going to teach these kids. And ironically, his name is Crash.
Oh,
His nickname is Crash. He's been in 12 accidents. And so he doesn't have a great reputation, but he's kind of what the Navy has left to train these young kids. And
okay.
Damn Navy.
As ex-Navy for 5 minutes, I'm going to say that they're mishaps, not crashes.
Okay.
No, they're crashes. They just try to make them sound prettier.
No, definitely. But it's 1945, and so he's 60 years old, and so he was born in 1885. There weren't even any planes until he was older. So his crashes start early. He crashed a hot air balloon.
Oh God!
When he was a kid. So that kind of stuff. That's how we're going to go.
Nice.
They weren't even doing biplanes back then.
Not until like the 1910s, 1911, 1912, right in there.
Right, for World War I. That's exactly what I was thinking.
And so, and then, I don't even know when they started like manufacturing them for, somebody, a barnstormer could learn how to fly, or a duster or something like that. But there was a long time for him where he couldn't fly. And so he found any way he could. And that's part of what pushes him on. And really this turns into something else. And it's pretty easy to tell. That's kind of the idea here, that maybe this might be an origin story of someone we all know. And maybe that origin story might involve someone who likes to fly. And so I think you get the idea of what happened. And maybe turning that story, that classic story, we'll just call it Peter Pan, just in case people don't know. Let's say this was the origin of Peter Pan. And really what I was really excited about was when I was a kid watching Peter Pan, I didn't believe the idea that a kid wouldn't want to grow up. When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was grow up. I wanted to drive a car. I wanted to chase girls. I wanted to smoke cigars. I wanted to play third base for the Dodgers. Whatever. I wanted to grow up. I wanted to be an adult.
Right.
I loved watching them chew tobacco. Just all these things I saw adults do, I wanted to do. Even though I knew it wasn't. I didn't know if it was good for me or not. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, anyway. So,
right.
The idea is that I just never believed the whole story of a kid didn't want to grow up. And so I always thought, well, no, it's a fantasy for an adult who wants to be a kid again, is what it really is. And so I kind of took that story, kind of turned it on its head, the classic Peter Pan story, and maybe this guy gets to get younger instead.
Well, and see, I really like that that's what you just made it, where it's like, it's not that it was a kid that never wanted to grow up. It's that it's a kid who grew up who wants to go back. Because I agree with you. I feel like that is a lot more relatable, especially as adults, where you're like, man, how many times do you say, I really just, I know I saw that comment. Tony is on fire.
Oh my God. Thanks.
I love it. Thank you, Tony.
He is right.
Right. That is factually accurate.
Don't ask, don't tell about your plane.
But no, I really love that kind of concept, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody try to explain Peter Pan in that kind of mindset. But thinking of it like that, that's a lot more relatable and a lot more intriguing to me, because I'm like, dude, as an adult, I'm like, can I just go back to when I didn't have bills? Like,
right?
Yeah,
bills really suck.
Or when your body's falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 51. I mean, my foot hurts, my neck hurts. Every day, and I'm just ready to go back.
You have a specific part in this where when he's first greeted by the Native Americans, and then they take him to that lake or whatever that gets touched by an angel, and then he has to go all the way in, and he comes back out, and all of a sudden he's like fucking back in his 20s, just strong and can do everything, nothing hurts. And I was reading that and I was like, oh man, that'd be great. And I'm only 35. I just turned 35, and I'm like, yeah, but like my back over here, and I got this hip thing. Like, that'd be amazing.
Right.
No, yeah, that is the fantasy. And the whole concept of flying is to be free from your issues and your problems or whatever's going on in life, to be your own person and to fly like Superman or Peter Pan or whatever is just a dream people have had for so long. And so, yeah, you're right. I think it speaks to something that we all have intrinsically. And if you're a young person watching this and you're like, that's not going to happen to me, it's going to happen to you.
It will. Don't worry. It always does. It doesn't matter how in shape you are. Yeah. At some point, you're going to get fat and lazy, and then things are going to start hurting. And
oh yeah, definitely.
By the way, was that Hitler in a jar?
Yes, it was Hitler in a jar.
Yeah, it was his head. So there's a little fun.
A little fun Hitler in a jar.
Yeah, there's a little fun with Adolf. I'm actually drawing a fight scene involving him right now. Adolf. Okay, now these Nazis, you're wondering, well, how did Nazis get to the Bermuda Triangle? Okay, well, it's explained in the free preview here that they find a way to the island using their U-boats, using their submarine. And so the idea is that this is an escape. Now, remember, this is 1945. The planes they disappeared in December. And so it's about roughly 6 months after the end of the war. And so the Nazis who hadn't been captured and put on trial, the Nuremberg trials, the ones that hadn't been captured, some of them escaped, it's believed. There's a long time belief that they escaped to like Brazil or South America or somebody.
Argentina a lot. They found a lot of them.
Yeah. And so I kind of took that idea and said, well, no, they know how to get to this magic island. And there's the submarine. And they found a place to dock, and then they built a base inside into the caves. And that's where they found a place where they can do their gruesome experiments to create their army of abominations, as I like to call it.
That's really interesting because, you know, they actually did. They were working on setting up a base in Antarctica to flee to with U-boats. So.
Oh, gosh. I mean, they had a plan coming and going. And the idea that, and they were also so interested in genetics and enhancing people. They experimented on the poor people that they put in their concentration camps.
Right. I think they called it genetic hygiene or whatever. But they had a whole apparatus for it.
And so I
was gonna say the first question of the stream from Justin is a pretty legit one. He says, if Hitler is in a jar, can you feed him fish food?
Definitely.
I love it. I just have this image of little flakes on top, and then little Hitler comes up with his mustache and just tries to eat it without his body, just his little disembodied head.
Wait, is that part of his spine?
Well, that's like his esophagus and
holy shit,
breathing tubes, some kind of tube work. Because eventually he gets connected to other bodies. So
that's awesome.
We'll have a little fun with Adolf. And it was a big dilemma for me. Do I put the bullet hole, in his skull? Because obviously these other Nazis made it. Maybe Hitler made it half alive, kind of with his brain. And so he's kind of there, but I wanted him to be tortured. So my idea is that he is basically alive, so he's aware of what's happening to him. And so when you see him on his next body, you see that they weren't fans of Adolf either. So
he should take this one. That's a pretty good body to switch to.
Yeah.
From scrawny little file clerk or whatever.
Major Wilhelm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so the idea it gets to the villain plan is kind of fun. So their idea is that this Dr. Zurst, which is German for destroy, or is it conquer? Dr. Zurst. Okay, so destruction. I went and I looked up the German words for conquer and destroy, and that's how I named the evil doctor.
Nice.
Erober Zurstober. Anyways, it's a weird name, and I shortened it to just Dr. Zurst. And so he's a bad guy. And his plan all along was that he was saying that he's been pulling the strings behind the Third Reich the whole time, all to create the whole war in Europe. So it would tire out all the nations, basically, wiping out their resources. So there would have been a big, long 3, 4, 5-year war like there was. And that once that's happened, when everybody was kind of looking the other way, he was going to create this super army of just 100 soldiers that could go and kind of take over the United States. He says, all along, my goal was to take the United States because why would he want the impoverished nations, the nations that have these poor populations with their disease and their poverty? And so he's all, no, I'm just going to take the big one. I don't care about the other ones. And so that was the whole goal, is to launch this attack from this island right after World War II. And so that's what they're doing on the island right now. They're doing their genetic experiments and they're accessing the island. They can come and go. They figured out how to do it. And it's because of the U-boats. And so the idea is that these guys have this plan to take over the United States because they're aware, and we don't know how yet, but they're aware of what happens in the second half of the 20th century because of the United States presence and the Cold War and all that stuff that goes on. So it's a deep plan, but the idea is that there had to be, when I watch movies, superhero movies or comics, when the villain has a great plan that's actually scary, or like a James Bond villain, it can be terrifying if it makes sense, even though it's a fantastic and kind of totally unrealistic. If there's like just a seed of truth, of possibility, it seems to me like it's a little more terrifying that way. So that was the idea behind the villain's plan and why they're there.
I'm gonna expose my ability to watch and glean even a little kernel of goodness out of really shitty movies. So one of the later diehards in the series was where hackers basically take over everything. And I remember one graphic in that when they're doing their little propaganda video to terrify the populace, they say, what would happen if you called 911 and nobody answered?
Oh gosh.
Good.
What if you were hurt? What if you were alone and 911 didn't answer?
Yeah, see, that's good. That grabs you.
Dude, that'd be terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's obviously an action flick and, a special effects vehicle, but I mean, yeah, I get exactly what you're saying about little villain plots that make you go,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You see where they are there. The girl there is explaining to the captain that, hey, these are all the things that wash up on our shores over the years. And
Betsy Ross flag, really?
Yeah, there's a Betsy Ross flag. There's a pirate flag back there, and muskets and grenade launchers and pirate swords and cannons. So things from the past and also things from the future. So there's some things there that he says, oh, I don't recognize some of these things. And so the idea is that this island is kind of a catch-all for lost items throughout history and people.
The lost and found section of the Atlantic.
Exactly. In a hidden pocket dimension.
I've got to ask, this was a conscious choice to put, I'm going to call them American Indians because if you go back far enough, no one was a native of this land.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just hate inaccuracy or pandering. But with all due respect to their people, so they did not originate on this island. These aren't islanders.
Right.
These are people that came from the mainland U.S. to Bermuda. Okay.
Yeah, everyone has a backstory that now they appear to him as all teenagers, right? 13, 14 years old, kind of like that.
Oh, I get where you're going.
Been there for a very long time.
And they have access to that lake, of course. So
right. And so what happens is not only have they been there for a long time and been accessing the lake, but they actually have a story based in reality too. I try to make every group that gets to the island have something based in reality, like of course Flight 19 was a real flight. Characters are all changed, obviously, but the natives are actually from you guys remember the Roanoke colony that went missing in 1690?
Yes.
2-ish, something like that. You remember hearing about that? Anyway, it's a great mystery. It's another great mystery in America, along with Flight 19, is what happened to the Roanoke colony. And they were being helped by these Croatan Indians who were friendly to them. And one of the main leaders of the colony leaves in like 1692 to go get more supplies. He goes back to England. He comes back, and the colony and the Indians are all gone. They're completely gone. There's only a mysterious carving left in a tree that says Croatoan. And so it made him believe, okay, well, they left with the Croatan Indians and they ran off, and they thought that what they did was they went to an island nearby. They're in Virginia. So they thought they have a lot of little islands on the coast. And so they searched and searched, and they never found a trace of them. And so I pick up the story there. And when we see the backstory, we see that those natives, they were helping the colony, but they were attacked by a more warlike tribe that forces them to get into the remaining ship and hit the seas and head south. And they'll get caught up in a storm and end up on the island themselves. But so you're looking at the fact that these natives have been there for, 350 years. So they've been there collecting stuff and kind of seeing to the island, and they understand how a lot of things work there, and they kind of protect it. But those aren't the only items on the island. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that has disappeared throughout history. The wonderful items of antiquity, all hidden on the island.
So the only thing that I think I see that I'm not a huge fan of, and it's something that both Tony and Yahtzee had both kind of pointed out as well, is you have some pages, because the artwork is so cool to look at, and I love the style and the color choices so much. You have a couple pages that are so exposition heavy that it's dominated by text.
Right.
And it almost makes me wonder if there isn't maybe a more concise way to show some of that, and so there's not quite so much giant speech bubbles that are taking up pages.
Right. No, I hear you. Now these, like especially here, these big blue bubbles you see, they're much bigger than I'm going to actually print. In order to upload these to Indiegogo, the resolution was knocked down so much that I couldn't read them.
Gotcha.
Upload. So I redid it, and I had to enlarge all the text and the bubbles in many areas, a lot of these areas. And so hopefully, after I look at my test prints, once we go to print, I'll be able to get it down as small as I can, revealing more of the art as I possibly can.
Because that's I was gonna say, if that's the problem that you were having putting it up on Indiegogo, make sure when you go and get your print files and everything set up and sent off, pay whatever money you have to see an actual physical print copy, before you tell them, yep, go ahead and print everything, because it might look right on the computer screen, and this is something I've seen in so many really good books. There's people that I love that do amazing books, and their print file is what screwed them, and they end up sending it off to get printed, and their speech bubbles are getting clipped that they didn't think would get clipped, or their gutters are way too big for some reason when they didn't seem like they would be, and things seem like they've been cut wrong, and it's really because the print file wasn't consistent enough, but on the computer screen it looks fine.
So I'm going to shorten what Shae just said, because I'm an asshole, and just say,
yes, you are.
Preprint matters.
Yeah.
Preprint very much matters.
Pre-press. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I was gonna say, if those being as big as they are is specifically because of the resolution on Indiegogo, which we know is a lower res.
Yeah.
Then the likelihood that it's going to be okay is still pretty good. I will still say you have a lot going in each speech bubble. That is a lot of, and granted, you're trying to give backstory and you're trying to give history and all that. So it's hard to do that more concisely. But I don't know if you have an editor, but that's always something that I suggest when people find themselves getting kind of wordy, is making sure that you have a good editor who can kind of help you go, so yes, the way that you said it works, but you can cut it down and get the same point across with fewer words. That's going to look a little bit punchier for your reader instead of feeling like I'm trying to read a comic and I'm getting a novel.
Right. You're right. I hate that too when I'm reading a comic and it just gets so heavy with print and text.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely aware of that. And I try, but you're right about the editor. I've actually reached out to a couple people already to see if that's something they could do. But I think that's great advice you guys are giving.
Yeah. I've already, so both Cy and I edit as well, and I've already done this for another person's project where they just wanted to kind of get my feel in the first 5 pages, and I came back with, so this is how I would change just page 1, and I kind of gave him the hints, and he goes, so how much do you charge to do this? Because that would be helpful. And it's, when you write, you know what you want to say, and it sometimes that means that you don't explain enough, and sometimes that means that you over explain because you understand that people aren't in your head, so you ramble on a little too long. And having somebody outside go, I get that you're making sure that this came through clear, but you don't have to say all of this, you can just say this, and that suffices with the art and everything that you got.
Just to tack this on at the end of that, because I always have to have the last word because I'm a dick. The other thing is when you have did she flip me off?
I don't know what you're talking about. Continue, please.
Where's the instant repeat? So one of the other things that I've noticed, when you have an artist who is also the writer, and the writing happens first, the artist will explain so much in their scripting and their word bubbles, because the art isn't done yet. And then they explain so much of what they've already explained in the word bubble that they don't retroactively go back and kind of clean that up. The other thing is, when you're a writer, as what Shae was saying, writers cannot edit their own work. They should not edit their own work.
No.
Even if you just have a buddy, a pal who's an English language speaker, to just look it over and be like, yep, that makes sense.
That is English.
Yes, that is the English. So, I mean, even then, because I read just a shit ton of novels, and whether it's something professional from a company like Penguin or Random House, or whether it's something that people went through, like direct publishing, like Amazon, you have to have that other step of editing, because if you're the only one that looks at your book, I mean, I have novels 5 feet from me that just as an editing exercise, I've gone through and picked out all the typos, all the punctuation, all the tense mistakes, all the gender pronoun mistakes, where they're talking about their own characters that they invented, and it's on literally every other page. So it's easy to kind of get hypnotized by your own work. So yeah.
Well, the artist never wants to cut anything, and that leads me to a question that you're the perfect people to ask. Now, as someone who has been reading and collecting comics since the early 80s, I really like the traditional size of a comic book, even when it's a graphic novel. Like,
now, do you mean the dimensions of the page or the length of the comic?
And so my question to you is, as an artist, I want to, every artist wants their artwork to be as big as possible. I'm thinking about, and I wanted to see what you guys thought about getting this printed actually as 8.5 by 11. What do you guys think?
Okay, so getting it printed at printer paper size.
At letter size, yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think of that? Do you think people balk at that?
So, me personally, I prefer being able to store all of my comics together, to bag and board them and everything like that.
Yeah, it won't fit a long box, I think, is where she's going.
Yeah, and I like to make sure that I can keep everything kind of nice and protected. And when people do them larger than that, that starts to pose a problem where I have to special order bags and boards that are actually going to fit that. I know the UK does them bigger, and the books that I've gotten from the UK have been a UK comic size. And while it's really, really cool, and I like the ability to get kind of bigger prints of some of the artwork, when it comes to the book, I'd rather the book be a regular comic book size. And then if you want to really show off your art, offer prints. Do you know, even if you did postcards that you could fit into a comic book size, you could do postcard pinups of some of your favorite panels and really blow that up. And so that is going to end up being a lot bigger than what it is in the book. But it's not going to cost you a whole bunch extra in shipping because you can still slide that into a comic book and ship it out all in the same Gemini mailer. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I would end up making that compromise. Would be I'd keep the book the regular size, but I would offer prints that were maybe postcard size or a little bit bigger that you could still ship with a Gemini mailer that will show off some of that artwork that you really, really like.
And here we have an opposing view, which I'm not suppressing for some reason, but
no, it's, I mean, and that's the thing, is everybody's got their own opinion. And if there's a book that's oversized, that's not a deal breaker. I'm not going to not get it because it's bigger. So if you're looking at your art and you're going, you know, if I made this bigger, you could see more of the artwork and you could get a lot more of the feel of what I wanted to put out there. And especially in a book like yours, where you have so much exposition, you could keep that the same size, but make the artwork around it bigger. So it's automatically going to look smaller. It could be a very good solution for that problem. And it's most likely not going to be a deal breaker for 90% of your customer base, especially when you have something that is this solid in the feel, the artwork, the style, and the storytelling. It's such a perfect little package that just feels really put together. I don't care how big you make it. I'm still willing to buy it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's a little more expensive, but it's not that expensive. You know, once you start in the numbers, then hoping to order in, it might be worth it, you know, so.
It could very well be worth it. And then you've also got to keep in mind, if you have it where it's going to make it easier for you to show off more of the artwork, because so far the biggest complaint in our chat has been your speech bubbles are covering up your art.
Yeah.
And so if that is the biggest complaint, and the easiest way for you to make sure that you can show off the art and still get your story across, if there isn't stuff that you need to edit down from an editor's perspective, would be to make the comic bigger. That could end up bringing you more backers.
That's a good way to look at it. And yeah, definitely those bubbles are all going to get smaller.
Thank goodness. I don't like it covering all the art.
At least 25%. I mean, easily. I had to really blow it up. I had to do it like twice because I still couldn't see the first time I did it.
Yeah.
Even bigger on some of them. And so.
And that's why you see a lot of these Indiegogo's. So I'm kind of torn as well. Like I want to know the storytelling, because after backing so many indie projects, I've gotten so many books where I'm like, the art is beautiful, but man, the storytelling is just rough.
Yeah.
Like the way that it's laid out and the way that they're trying to get through, and it's jumping all over the place instead of being like a nice flow to writing. And so I've gotten to the point where I like to see the speech bubbles, because I like to get a little bit of a feel for what the story is going to be like. But then part of me also hates getting the speech bubbles because I want to see the artwork.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I hate when people mimic the pages where you have one page of speech bubbles and one page without. And I'm like, this is just wasted space, and I have to scroll that much more. And so it's like you can't please.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So
it's a delicate balance.
It is.
And partly as an artist, when I was doing picture books, children's picture books, what I really wanted to tell the editors was, they would tell me, okay, in this picture, we need this drawing and that drawing of maybe an adult telling kids a story or something. And instead of showing the actual story, they would say, well, it's gonna be written about, you know. I said, no, let's show them visually what's happening. That's the whole point of a picture book, you know.
Right.
And so you want to make those suggestions to editors, but sometimes they're a little too close to the forest to see the trees, and they're just getting the message out, and they're not thinking about the actual product and how you're presenting and telling the story with part of the the visuals tells a part of the story that the text is not telling. And so,
well, the whole point behind a comic is it's a visual medium. If I just wanted to read a bunch of exposition, I would grab a novel. That's the point of having a novel.
And the opposite is also true. If you just want art,
if
then
I just wanted pretty pictures, I'd go watch a movie
or a coffee table book
or exactly.
Something like
that. And so if you've got a comic book, you've got to realize that a large portion of your storytelling is coming through the artwork. And then the things that you should be covering that are in your speech bubbles or in your, overarching story is the stuff that you can't draw and convey real well. So more of your abstract thoughts, your existential things, that's what's going to end up in your speech bubbles, because
and
you
of
can't
course your dialogue
and your dialogue, because you can't draw that. You can't draw somebody saying this and having the person know exactly what they said. So you have to put the dialogue in. But when it comes to the stuff where you could start showing, like when people are doing flashbacks and you could show through panels and images, and if you wanted to really sell it as a flashback, do it in black and white.
Yeah.
When the rest of your book is in color and you want to really show that this is where it came from, changing up the color palette gives people a place where this specific section is separate from the rest of the story. And then you can go through and show all these panels of this is how everything works. And this is how we came to be, rather than here's 3 pages of just walls of text.
Right.
And there you go. Let's get back to the comic, because that's not why I'm picking up a comic.
Right. I need to put out 2 disclaimers really quickly. So she's definitely not talking about a hugely selling comic in CG that just has walls of text. Definitely not. The other thing is that this advice does not necessarily reflect what advice we're necessarily giving to you, but to others who are also watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is universal advice.
I want to just explain that we're not harping on you about shit. No. We've opened it up to a broader bit of advice here.
No,
because it's a recurring issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate any advice. You see something else, I'm happy to listen. As a matter of fact, I wish that I had gotten to the point where I was almost finished before I started the campaign, so I could I could finish and post reviews, because I would love to hear what somebody has to say in the form of a review as well. And so, but the idea of Indiegogo is to create a campaign, is to say, hey, here's the idea. What do you guys think? Do you want a story? Back it if you do. That's kind of the idea. Of crowdfunding. So I thought, well, let's see if anybody likes the idea of it.
Well, and the thing is so this is your first campaign. Are you planning on continuing on with this series? Are you going to be doing other books and stuff, or is this a one and done?
I think that from the island, there's a lot of stories that can be told, even in the outside real world, where it would be a universe, and they're all the stories can be connected, either how big or how small. Like that Native American kid right there with the guitar, he has a whole thing where he wants to go to the Old West. Like that's a whole nother story. That would be a whole book into the 1800s, and they have the ability to do that. Because the way they can access the island, and the girl has a particular set of abilities that makes her able to fly to the real world, basically, and encounter people from different times, and so that's kind of the idea, is that it's kind of kicks off a universe, and a lot of stories that can be told there. And there's also, by the time we get to the end of this book, we haven't even seen one of the main antagonists from the classic story until the very last panel. We may see him and his pals. So
interesting.
So you definitely have more planned for this.
Yeah.
And so when you get to the point where you're doing your second, your third, your fourth campaign, you can start throwing in those reviews from the first one.
Right. There you go.
And so it's kind of a build on your brand and on your product. But I agree, everybody loves the artwork. I think the artwork is phenomenal. It really reminds me of some of my favorite cartoons when I was growing up. So I love it. I'm
going to say this before Shae fucking steals it, because I said this right before you joined the StreamYard. Shut up, Shae. Don't pout. Whatever. Yeah, you're so oppressed. Johnny Bravo. That's what
Yes.
that's what some of this art reminds me of.
Oh, good. I'm a big fan of Johnny Bravo.
I'm not trying to put you down, but I could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. I really enjoyed this book. So we've been talking for almost 40 minutes and we haven't even gone over your tears because I just got so into this story and this artwork. So let's
you
go
talk
over...
for a full 20 minutes. I'm going to talk for 2. I'm waiting for the finger.
I'm waiting for you to talk ass.
Talk ass. That's very good. You English well. Blitzkrieg chop. Okay. I that's just very funny to me. The Blitzkrieg chop.
Yeah, let's go through your tiers so people know how they can back you.
Okay.
You're such an asshole.
I'm blowing past everything Cy said. So real quick before we hit the tier, Cy, can you go back up? What are we sitting at?
Oh. Yeah. 6424. And you're on an 8K fixed goal. So you've made 80% in your first 50% of time. Yeah. That's awesome.
That is awesome. That is amazing.
You're going to see that huge bump. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Still have another 30 days. I'm super excited to see this hit funding. And after we go through your tiers, we'll talk if you have any stretch goals or anything. So, okay, let's go through tiers.
Okay. I will. I'm paying attention to the chat. Since some asshole doesn't want me to speak. All right, she's.
I'm just saying.
She went away. All right, so let's see. Tiers. Also called perks for those of you who bitch at me for. Oh, someone has arrived. Okay, there we go. All right, so if you want to go through these, I will be happy to scroll down through them. Okay.
All righty. Here on Island 25, it's $25 perk, you get the graphic novel. It's going to be either between 90 and 100 pages, the final.
Wow.
The idea in my not knowing exactly how many is because I'm not sure how many of, I talked about the background of some of the characters. I don't know how much of those backgrounds I'm going to go into. Mm-hmm. They can either be spoken about, we talked about that quickly. Say, oh, well, those are the ones that with that weird colony. They got lost with the colony. They say those natives. But or that we can actually show a little bit of that. And I would love to do that, obviously, as an artist. You want to draw as much as you can. But we'll just see time, getting to the time goal. I still have 5 months to work on it, basically. And so it's going very well. I'm more than 25% of the way done. And so it's actually moving along quite nicely. And so I'm not worried about finishing on time and delivering on time. I'm just more interested in how much interest there is in learning about those stories. And I may change my mind. I think maybe they can be little companion, shorter comic book size.
Right. Or even, maybe an ash can with it to go into some of your backstory.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be cool.
The other thing I was going to suggest, since you have such a free hand in terms of the length of your comic, you're not set in this is going to be a 24, 36, or 48 floppy. You have the room to be able to, if you have things that you have to say and you have to put them on the page, you have the ability just through changing the layout and the fact that you have a free open-ended to really expand it to make those to find that balance that we were talking about.
Right. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so the $25 I'm seeing the average roughly 100-page book for about more like $35, $40.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, this is my first campaign. Nobody knows who I am. I haven't delivered anything yet. And so I felt like I wanted to tell everyone, hey, take a chance on me, as Abba would say, and give us a shot. I'm new at this. That's fine. Although, I've been in publishing for a long time. The indie comics is new for me. And so the idea of this lesser price, I was hoping you just want to get as many people as you can when you're new.
Right.
to buy your books. And so I would rather deal in quantity than
than a huge profit right off the bat for your first book.
Yeah, per book. It just, I don't know how daring I would be, in backing something like that myself.
Well, and this is the thing. This is where you are building your client base. And so this is kind of like the slow grind as you start to build your fans and your audience and everything. So I think that offering a book of this size with this quality of art that is so eye-catching and fun to look at, that is such an interesting and unique story at $25, that's an absolute steal. That's crazy. Oh. And so I think that that's a very smart move, because it's not so low that you're going to screw yourself in production, but it isn't unattainable for somebody who nobody knows yet.
Right, exactly. And that was the reason for the 8,000 goal, is because I was pricing the printers, and I wanted to be able to order 1,000 books, because what that would do, my cost per unit would be pretty decent. It'd be anywhere from $6.50, $7 to $8 per book at 100 pages. Plus, depending on like the quality of the cover and what kind of coatings there are, that would change the price of it. So I wanted to get to the point where it would just cost me, $6-7 to print a book, basically. And then if you could sell it for $25, then I can sell it in demand or at conventions, if those ever open up again.
Yeah, well, and future campaigns as well. When you're doing books 2, 3, and 4, you can always offer book 1 still if you have that.
Yeah, and so that was the goal, is to order as many books as I possibly could. And so that's
awesome.
That's a really smart idea.
Yeah,
I like it. Okay, next here.
The PDF download. I was doing all the pricing on the shipping, and I thought anybody who was not in the country, $300 to get a book shipped to you, or 70, something that costs twice as much as the book itself. I don't see a lot of people ordering that. So I wanted to give people the option to actually go ahead and just read the story. And I think a first time indie comic creator has got to be willing to, I think, give it up. Give it up.
Yeah.
To get the story out there, really. And also for anybody who's not in the United States.
Also keep in mind, they will, if you want to do it at the same time, you obviously can, but you're going to have that PDF a lot before you have the books back from the printer. Right. So, I mean, if you were to make that conscious choice, you could have them get the PDF as like a. Well, here's a question then: is the PDF? Are you giving the PDF as a preview to physical backers before their books arrive?
No, I wasn't planning on doing that, but that's not a bad idea. I mean, I suppose I could send it out early, like you're saying.
Right, and the other thing is, a lot of people, they want the physical because they love that feeling of it in their hands. They want that physical connection to the book, but maybe they're reading on their commute to work and they want to put it on their iPad or something like that, or the Kindle or whatever. So you might think about doing that just as an added value.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good thought to kind of keep in the back of your head, because so there's another way that I've seen somebody do this. So Adam Lawson, when he did the 8th, and also when he does Kill Journal, he's got kind of almost chapters within his books, right? And so the way that he's been doing it is, while they're working on the last little bit of the book, every month that they're in production, they're sending out a PDF from the 8th of chapter 1, and then the next month is chapter 2, and it goes to everyone who backed.
Oh, I see.
And so you're getting to read this as you're waiting for your physical to come through.
Right.
And I think that for me, that has made it really exciting, because I want to know what's coming next. And I actually hit a point where I was like, okay, I'm not reading anymore until I can hold it in my hand, because I want to see it, because I'm reading it and the story is so good. But I was like, oh, I want to experience the finale of all of this. I want to experience it with the physical copy. So I stopped reading the PDFs, because I know that I like the book and I know that I'm excited for the story. And it gives you that bit of engagement, and it helps keep you excited for something that is several months away, because most of these books are going to take 6 months to a year before we ever see them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's
So
great.
it's
Yeah.
something to think about.
I feel about that. I love my books, and I just like to, like you say, just to hold them, that whole tactile element of these comics and to see how it's printed, even those old comics with
newsprint.
Yeah, that newsprint feel. There's nothing like that. I mean, that's great. And so,
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. And the good news is that I can see, like, on the campaign where the people live, as far as like what city or what country. And about half of the ones that I've sold for the PDF have actually gone towards people outside of the country. So it's accomplishing the goal pretty much. But you're right. I think using it as a hype option to pre-sell. Yeah, no, I think that's
and especially if you still have the book in demand.
Yeah.
And you're waiting on maybe other perks to come back, or you're waiting on the print file to finish getting formatted and everything like that. As other people are reading it or reading parts of it and they're getting excited, they're getting other people excited, which means you're getting more backers and in demand, because they're going, oh shit, that's one I missed out on. Wait, you're saying it's really good? Well, I don't want to miss out on it. And so now they're going to go and back. And as long as you make sure that you keep track of when you're going to need to kind of have your final cutoff point to order. But for somebody like you, you're over ordering intentionally. So you could leave your in-demand store up as long as you want, as long as you're still getting some backers over the course of several months. You can leave it up for a really, really long time.
Right, even after you start shipping.
Exactly. And so you could ship, and then you could just put it out there that you're going to do batch shipments at the end of every month or something like that. And so if somebody backs in the beginning of November, they know they're not going to get it till the end of November kind of thing before it ships.
Yeah,
but
so you
could
save
easily
yourself that
just say
headache
that.
of shipping out once a day, every day.
Instead of every single day going to the post office and you're like, here's another 3. I'll be back tomorrow with 5. Like, really get to know your postal workers.
Yeah, didn't Adam Post do that with the first College of the Dead? He just left it open for like indefinitely, even while he had already fulfilled.
Yeah, there's a lot of people do that, and because it's basically just an online storefront at that point.
Right.
And so you can keep it up clear up until you're like, I don't want to have to keep checking this campaign and keeping up with it, and I'm launching a new one, so I'll launch this new campaign and then I'll offer this and that one. Yeah. And that's how a lot of people have just kind of kept it going.
Right, or take it down like a month before to build the hype and the rarity and the resale value, and then you'll have all your orders, day one for your back issue. But awesome. Sorry.
Anyway, back to the tiers. We keep getting distracted. Like, it's because Drew's so easy to talk to.
You guys are giving good advice, though, so I'm all ears. That's all right.
I'm happy you're receptive to the advice, because, there have been situations where people are just like, okay.
A little less than thrilled with us.
Yeah.
No,
it doesn't stop us, but
no. It stops them from ever appearing on the show again, because fuck those guys. God, there was something I was going to tell you about your fulfillment that I just completely forgot. It'll come back to me. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, Island 45, $45. It's the novel and a beginning of some of the stretch goal stuff. Now, the way I did it, to keep it cheap again, to keep the price low, is I looked at the stretch goals and I set them pretty high as far as the numbers of where things start to kick in. The idea was that I would make it cheap to get stretch goals, but the stretch goals have a very high ceiling, meaning we have to sell so many of them first. Just to say, hey, go ahead and order the book. Now, I would say this 45 is it's maybe a few dollars more than what you would pay for $100 or a 100-page book anyways. So I thought of it as, okay, so for the regular price for a 100-page book, then you'll start to get some of the perks. The only drawback is the perks are, or the stretch goals are high. So I think the first one starts at like 10,000, then it goes to 12,000, and then well,
let's take a look.
Yeah, they're high.
And the other thing, just to keep in mind, because I've seen people mess this up, make sure that when you're done and you're ready to send that print file to the printer, that you announce very clearly on whatever social media you have and on the campaign that you are locking out the stretch goals, so that things, basically so that while it's sitting at the printer, you don't have a stretch goal that's going to change the print job in some way.
Right.
Because I've seen that happen, and then it's, people are generally understanding, but you always have that one dick out there.
Yeah, you always have some people that are going to just make it a thing. By the way, I love that you have patches on this. This is one of my... We're Red Valkyrie. We are the patch place. Cy has to be, because I made such a huge stink while they were gone. So now Cy just has to be into patches.
Exactly.
You have no choice.
More than anything. I told my wife I'm going to go to the Navy surplus store and buy one of those olive green shirts.
Yeah.
Put that patch.
We have jackets. We have show jackets, and I want that patch on that show jacket for sure.
Perfect for a jacket.
If you don't, also, if you don't have a person, if you're not sure where you're going to get those patches made yet, let me know. Yes, those are our jackets.
Definitely send me that. Because I am.
Well, you know a guy.
Every day I spend about an hour just looking up some of these sourcing areas.
And if you need help with that, let us know, because we've done a lot of research on the back end for consulting that we've done for different campaigns, whether paid or not. And so we've spent quite a bit of time looking into this stuff, like trading cards, prints, all kinds of stuff from places.
You've had such good advice. You should do a book.
Yeah. Oh, we're working on some. We got.
I'd buy it.
So we're actually working on, now that Cy's back, we're working on a segment called Valkyries in Mead, where we're going to basically take a lot of this advice in small little, like 10 to 15 minute snippets, and put it out there for everybody, because we've done a lot of work. We've helped a lot of campaigns. We've had well over 100 people on our show, and we've seen campaigns from the absolute top tier, completely squared away, they got everything right, to holy shit, how are you even attempting to tie your shoes, much less crowdfund?
Oh, no.
And
I would
everything in between.
Heartbeat. If you sold it for $50 or $100,
here we go.
Best buy. If you had it all written down, access some of your videos,
Yeah, that's a thought. Maybe we should put it in print form.
Yeah, definitely.
As long as we can just blanketly give credit to the people that have fucked things up in CG and indie comics, instead of having to point out, this lesson is brought to you by Jeff Hicks, who decided to ship all of his shit without any packing or an envelope, things like that.
Trying to do that. That's a lot.
No, that would be wrong.
So what are these stretch goals?
Okay, so the book BART starts at 12,000, 15,000 for the. I wanted to add at the end. This doesn't count against the story, the 90 to 100 pages for the story. The supplemental images. I was going to put some concept art and some character descriptions as artwork in the back of the book, and so I thought that might be kind of fun. I suppose it could also be like an ash can too, But I think inside the book it would be better. I think it would be easier for shipping, and if it became a part of the book, it might be a little more fun.
Well, you can always do, if you ended up doing it, like if you wanted to do an ash can, but you wanted it printed within the book, you could always do an interior cover that kicks it off. And I like that too. That's one thing that, a couple of these books have done, and I like when you're starting flipping through and then you see a new interior cover and you're like, oh, it's a new section.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I've seen novels that do that, like to break up different, perspectives and things like that. And if it's done right, it can be really, really awesome. I had a question real quick about this perk before we move on. It says hard copy books. I didn't catch that on the tiers as we were going down. Is this a hardcover book?
Oh no, hard copy, meaning just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm physical. I thought about not putting that in there just because of that.
I would change hard copy to physical.
Physical.
Yes.
It's probably better.
Because, some people who are writers and editors don't know how to read, like myself.
Are going to misread it like a certain someone just did, maybe.
That's probably a good idea. And then, of course, the patch is at 20,000. 2 stickers. I'm going to get 6 in total, featuring characters. And then the keychains. The red feather is important because it's part of the storytelling. Exactly. You give it to someone who has earned it. And then also the other keychain, which is not
the canteen.
I guess the canteen is the MacGuffin. You'll see. You'll notice,
and it's labeled that.
Into the pond. When he goes into the pond, that canteen is open, and so maybe that particular enchanted water.
Right. So what you're saying is, instead of the Holy Grail, this is like the Holy Flask.
There you go.
The Holy Flask. I like it.
It cures all that ails you. Yeah. And so, and then we move on down to the postcards. I wanted to show these. Oh no, this is a mini poster. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Postcard, mini poster. Gotcha. Okay, so these are little 7x5 postcards that I thought would be cool. I love these old Marvel. I don't know if you've seen them.
Okay, and these are the ones we're talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, nice.
Postcards of the classic covers. And so I thought what would be cool is if I did something that showed all of the environments. And so that was kind of the idea. The theme of this would be environments.
I like it.
Gotcha. So you have like the scenic. Gotcha.
Right, exactly. And then the posters are 11x17. That can be fold outs. That can fit into the book when you mail it. And so that's kind of nice.
40. It looks like you have the trading cards. So between the postcard mini poster and the fold out posters, just so we're not skipping, is the 3 trading cards.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was a huge baseball card collector, so I love cards. And so I thought would be great and I was looking into this, they actually do a nice print job, a double-sided print where both sides would be glossy. And so I thought what I would do is show, many of the characters have a transformation. And so I thought I would show each version of the character per card.
So one of the things that we've researched for other campaigns is places to be able to get really good cards done. We'll talk. I know a guy.
Okay, definitely.
Stan knows a guy. I know a guy. We all got guys. We got guys all over.
They're surprisingly not as expensive as you would think for a custom card.
Yes.
Oh, good. That's awesome. No, I'm definitely interested in those cards. And then the 11x17 fold-out poster of the cover. Okay, that one I think we already went over.
Yep.
Yes.
That's it. That's the last one.
No, that's not.
Yeah. No, I forgot about
Get him to 200 million. I want a movie.
You get a free ticket. To the premiere.
Let's see, 200 million divided by 25 books.
Yeah. It's fine. It's not. It's like what, 10 books? It'll be cool. We got it. No problem.
I'm just figuring out how many tickets you would have to give out at that point to
so many. He'd be like, we have premieres. They're all across the nation, and I had to rent out all of these fucking places in order for people to go just to get the tickets for the people who backed.
I'm pretty sure that's 800,000 tickets.
Oh, wow.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, so let's finish through the tiers and then, no. On a theme park?
6.5 billion, baby.
We just have to buy a real island. That's it.
Yes.
A real island.
It's like Fantasy Island.
In an old plane, and you have to shoot out.
Wait, did we crash? I don't want to crash.
You get a parachute.
You have to parachute to get in? I'm out. I'm never going.
Shae, that was almost a quote from Serenity. My ship don't crash. If it crashes, you crashed it.
I like it.
Anyway, all right. Did we cover the foot? Oh, I also wanted to point out, because I did not see this on the $25 perk, that this one indicates that it's signed.
Yes.
The 45.
The 45, yes. Yeah, yes. I'll be signing that one. And, I kind of didn't want to sign because I was really hoping to go to conventions, and then invite people. Say, hey, come and meet me. I'd like to meet some people in the indie comics world and the backers. When I was a younger man, back in the 90s, I used to work in the video game industry as an animator, and our studio was down in San Diego, and we went to Comic-Con every year, and so it was pretty cool, and I loved it. It was right before it really exploded, and I missed the conventions, and they're fun, and I like meeting people. And so I was thinking, hey, bring your book and I'll sign it, or buy a book and I'll sign it. And I thought it might be a good way to just meet people. Press the flesh, as they say.
Justin brought up an interesting question. He goes, 6.5 billion. Will it have a Jurassic Park, you may die at the park, but not responsible if you do rule?
Yeah, if your chute doesn't open when you
So you have to sign a thing that says there is a chance that I might die, and I'm okay with this.
A waiver, definitely.
Ironclad hold harmless agreements. Yep.
The other thing, this is 45, and this is the tier that really opens you up for all the stretch goals.
Right.
So I just want to make that distinction for people that are backing this book. It's going to try to sign me in. No, don't do it.
Good job.
Shut up. We have a question from the chat. Shae, why don't you do that while I undo this clusterfuck?
So Eric McIntyre says, what games did you work on?
Oh, okay. I worked on a lot of sports games way back in the day at that company down in San Diego. We did Sega games, and then we started doing PlayStation games. I worked on World Series Baseball to start off. I worked on, we actually hand animated and hand drew on like actual animation tables with the light board and everything. I did a Looney Tunes game. It was called Desert Demolition. That was an old Sega game. I did all of the cameos, which would be like Bugs Bunny and Tweety Bird. And way back then, I actually got to draw, is it Elmer Fudd shooting Daffy Duck in the face?
Nice.
His beak spinning around his face. So that was the good old days, when we were.
Hell yeah.
You show that stuff.
Before they took his fucking gun away because they're a bunch of wusses.
And then he gets to like hand him flowers or something. I don't know what he's doing now. But yeah, those are the good old days. Oh, also, I worked on a Spider-Man game. I worked on a Superman game.
And you just got around.
Yeah. There was a lot of games that came and went. We did, but mostly sports. In the early 2000s, I worked for a company where I live now here in Camarillo, and we did a lot of sports games. The 2K sports. Yeah, baseball and hockey, college basketball. Yeah. And so a lot of.
I'm going to acknowledge that you just said is hockey. So okay, we can continue.
Yeah. That was the funnest game we made. Our NHL game, definitely.
And these were officially licensed games, I assume.
Oh yeah.
So
nice.
Not small potatoes.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, they did.
All right, so let's wrap up the tiers, and we'll see if we got any more questions from the chat.
Okay.
Now that I've unfucked it, here we go.
Okay, Island 65 is $65 for 2 novels. Now, the variant cover, which is the reason for the second novel, features the same layout of the first cover, except I mentioned the characters have sort of an alter ego.
Mm-hmm.
They change or transform. Well, this one is going to feature their final forms and who they change into. And so it's a bit of a spoiler if I show that now, but it's pretty cool because once you see them, it'll be kind of fun. And I like what you said about putting that one inside, that cover inside. Maybe I'll do something like that too. But the idea is that it'll be the same, but you'll see how different. The same but different. That makes any sense.
You hit $100,000. You should just make it what do they call it? A ventricular cover. It's where you just you turn the cover at another angle and the picture changes.
And you
those are cool.
A lenticular. That's what it is. Lenticular. I remembered that English. Go ahead.
This is why we can't have nice things.
And then Yeah, and then you're eligible again for the stretch goals along with those 2 novels, and they're both signed, I believe.
Yes, signed novel, original signed novel variant, and
that's the whole shebang right there. That's everything. So all of the stretch goals here, the 2 novels plus all the stretch goals, and then a thank you in the back. I'm going to have a special page just for thank yous for everyone. And
that's awesome.
Yes, and so that's
cool.
So there's all kinds of really awesome goodies that you can get along with this. If you don't have a lot of funding, then you can definitely just go for a more basic tier. But you have a lot of the cool stuff that I think are things that people actually want, instead of just garbage throwaway stuff that people aren't going to use or put anywhere. Like you got patches, you got keychains, you got
posters, postcards.
Yeah, like there's just so much. There's a lot of really cool things to entice, and I really, really think that people, I mean, I know I appreciate it. I very much appreciate kind of how you got your campaign laid out, and it makes me really excited for it. And so I'm hoping that you're going to just keep on. You've already been doing great for your first 30 days. I want to see you just keep trucking along and just getting more and more and more backers, because this is such a great looking book. And you seem, aside from the fact that you have the experience, right? You have experience in storytelling, in, creating and all that for a very long time, and seeing something that is your baby. It's kind of like what we were talking about before we started. This is your creation and your baby, so you're so much more motivated to make sure that it is exactly perfect what you want, with all of the kit and caboodle. This is a really good project for people to get in on.
Yes, definitely. And I really love the idea of the whole crowdfunding idea, because you just really feel like they're not just customers, but they're people on the journey with you.
Exactly.
You want to see it happen and see it come to life. And hopefully there's a story there that is inspiring and exciting that you want to see more of, like you're saying. And so thank you for those kind words. I do appreciate that.
Right. And that's what CG and kind of Comics Gate are really about, is making that connection with your customer, caring about the product that you're doing, because anyone can write a comic and then just shove it at Diamond and say, go sell this in stores. But when you're actually interacting with your fans, whether it's through social media or your updates or like on your campaign page or things like that, it's just, and it makes the fans, it not only gives that engagement for the artist, the creator, and makes them, more kind of in tune to what's working, what's not, but it makes the fans so much more invested in when they buy your products, because, wow, I'm reading this amazing page and it just fucking blew me away. Yeah. Let me shoot a DM to Drew and tell him how great he did on page 47.
No,
exactly.
Yes, exactly. I love the feedback. I love hearing from people on Twitter and doing these live streams. It's fun and meeting the community. What a great time to be getting into indie comics. I wonder if we're going to look back at this in a few years and think that this was sort of the indie comics golden era. In that,
absolutely, I wholeheartedly believe that, because the way that we're kind of going about doing all of this is we're blazing a new trail, much like if you go back and you look at how certain comic book companies like Image came about doing this kind of thing. Right. Image came about by a bunch of people saying, we don't like what's happening over here, we think we can do it better, we have the drive, we have the passion, and that's what they ended up doing. And there's no reason why. This is the difference here, is that everybody is fighting for themselves and their own brands and remaining independent, so they maintain the control.
Yeah.
But I think that it's resonating a lot better with a lot of the customer base, because you get that investment, you get to feel that dedication from the people that you're interacting with. What?
Don't do it. You're moving all around. It's crazy.
I had to move my camera. It was cutting off half my head. Hold on, wait.
There we go. You're right.
Well, this has been so much fun, and honestly, it's been an hour and in almost 15 minutes, and it doesn't even remotely feel like it. It's just flown by so fast. And unfortunately, I think that we're going to have to wrap. But I definitely want to bring you back on next month.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I would love to. I would definitely love to. Okay.
Yes,
and
perfect.
especially after we have that chance to talk about, you know, whatever advice that you want to get off stream. I'm really eager to have you back on so we can delve into this even more.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Cy. Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to thank everybody in the chat for coming and hanging out with us. You guys are amazing. And we absolutely appreciate every last one of you. We are still planning our part 2 of our celebration stream. I'm sorry if you have been waiting on bated breath. We're running into some issues trying to stream while I'm with my parents, who have been gracious enough to sacrifice 1.5 of the days that they have with me. I don't think I'm going to get more than that. So I'm probably not going to be able to do it till I get back to Maryland, but we're going to work on trying to get it probably sometime very, very early November, because I've got a lot of stuff in my house that I want to get out of there and give away to you guys. So
right. And we have a lot of things happening on the channel that we're very eager to get going. So
maybe memberships.
Maybe memberships. Maybe monthly memberships, so we don't have to deal with Patreon. By the way, we have a Patreon. It's links in the description.
But thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. We really appreciate you. We have 2 more streams today, so make sure you come and check us out. Drew, you are a phenomenal guest. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. You guys have a great energy, and I love your show. And
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And audience, thank you all so much for contributing. We've tried to kind of mention you as you came into the chat. Wolvie, Justin, bunch of folks. Antoine. Jeez. Leg kick.
Leggy. That's Leggy. We love Leggy.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys have all been amazing, and we appreciate all of you. And we will catch you in about an hour and a half. We're going to be doing this again, so we will see you guys very shortly.